Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Market Movers by Get Rich Podcast, September 12, 2025. And today it's going to be me alone since Edmund is climbing to greater heights somewhere across the globe. So, welcome to our Market Movers. And if you're new here, there's a weekly recap that we give to you, our listeners, on what's happening in the local markets and the global markets. Let's get started. Top headlines. So, we're going to be covering 4 points today: inflation, and not just here in the Philippines, but also in the United States. And then we're seeing all of these, di ba, yung Blue Ribbon Committee, and ang dami nangyayari sa Senate. So, PBBM daw to remove flood control budget for 2026. How is that going to affect us? And we also saw recently the job rates that climbed in last July 2025 that was recently announced. And of course, we'll just try to look what's happening within the market itself. So if you remember, last 2 weeks, there was a Konektadong Pinoy bill that went into a law, passed into a law, lapsed into a law. So check natin yung mga effects yan kung anong nangyari in our local markets. So the first one is this one. So share ko lang guys, when I was looking at the news and just catching up throughout the week, it's not just in the Philippines, di ba? Kasi baka naiisip natin, ano ba ito nangyayari sa Senate, what's happening in the flood control, what's happening with our country. But let me tell you, hindi lang po sa Philippines yung nangyayari na kaguluhan na to. It's happening everywhere. You see it in Indonesia recently, sa Nepal, and sad tragic news that happened yesterday. There was a shooting in the United States that cost the life of Charlie Kirk. So we're seeing this, and you see over this meme, Wednesday pa lang when I saw that, and it's Friday today. So 2 days has passed and a lot has happened. And of course, you also have the economic data that is very crucial to what's going to happen in the next upcoming months here in our markets. As you can see over here, Philippine inflation rises 1.5 from 0.9 in August, and core inflation up by 2.7%. So the good thing about this is even if inflation rose from last month, this is still in line with the 2 to 4% of our BSP's target range. So because of this, it still supports the central bank's continued monetary easing policy. So this means is we can expect if in the future that we still have room to cut down interest rates. So the key drivers of this is lower rice prices, stable global oil costs, and government non-monetary interventions that have kept inflation subdued despite some uptick in consumer prices. So if you can see over here, what really increased the inflation was on vegetables, which is at 10% from 4.7 noong July, and you have fish, and then you also have rice. Rice continues to go down. And another thing that's also important is electricity. So I think recently we also saw that nag-increase na naman yung spot prices. So this is going to affect our electricity companies here in the Philippines. Okay? So as you can see over here, what's good about in the Philippines that inflation is going down. So again, that's just one part of it. As consumers, we want, but overall economy, is it really benefiting us? US inflation rises to 2.9% and core inflation at 3.1%. So this week, our inflation was released last Friday, and then yung sa US inflation was released last night. As you can see over here, because of this, there are two ways, no? So number one is sticky yung inflation sa United States, and at the same time, you're seeing the jobless claims or the job market in the United States weakening. So therefore, we're really pricing in that September 17 rate cut by 25 basis points. At least that would be our base case. So will it be higher by 25? Let's see. I think that the biggest challenge here is it's really a mixed signal because you have high inflation that supports the dollar strength, but at the same time, you have a labor market weakness. Diba yung nangyari sa jobless claims in the United States. Because of this, higher inflation here in the Philippines may give room for the BSP to cut more interest rates. So we've been seeing that, hindi lang naman this time, but we've been seeing it earlier this year. That's why the Philippines was first, or at least one of the first countries that started cutting their interest rates. It's not just in the US na nahirapan yung job market nila, but also here in the Philippines. As you can see, PH unemployment to pandemic levels. What does this mean? So the jobless rate climbs to 5.3% in July 2025, and the last time we were at these levels was back in 2022. And in 2022, we were just recovering from the pandemic. This just goes to show that there is something happening, or a weakness, economic weakness that's happening here in the Philippines. Thus, we're seeing lower inflation, and we're seeing that the BSP is really doing something with our interest rates to prop up our economic activity. Will cutting rates help us prop up the economy? So that's something that we should stay tuned and look out for the upcoming months. But there you have it. As you can see, the Philippine unemployment rate spiked to 5.3, and this means almost 2.6 million Filipinos were unemployed as of 2025. And I was taking a look at it. It's because of damaged farms, roads, leading to job losses in vulnerable sectors, highlighting the economy's exposure to climate risk amid broader labor market challenges. And same thing, why inflation was up, because of yung food natin. Going here to PBBM, remove 2026 flood control budget. And this is something that we've been seeing in our news. Yeah, sa Blue Ribbon Committee natin, and then nagpalit-palit ng Senate President and all. So Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said there's no need to include flood control projects in 2026 national budget. So how does that directly affect us as investors in the Philippine market? So directly, there are no companies, right, or at least directly doing business that we're seeing in the flood controls, right? But I think what's more important with that is really the sentiment that we're seeing. If you guys missed it, sabi ng South Korean president, nagkaroon siya ng Facebook post about withdrawing this 28 billion project in the Philippines due to corruption concerns. But sabi ni DOF, wala naman daw. Whether this is true or not, I think the bottom line here is there is a change in sentiment, right? Because of the corruption that's happening here in the Philippines. Of course, if you are a foreign investor, where are you going to invest? In a country na malaki yung corruption, or in a country na walang corruption, or at least if may corruption man lang, it's manageable. I think that pretty much states where the sentiment is today with the Philippines. And maybe it would, like looking at the markets, it really didn't move the markets that much when the news broke out. But moving forward, this might change the sentiment of our FDI, or foreign direct investments. And lastly, we would see the Konektadong Pinoy Act effects. So as you can see, 2 weeks ago, this was lapsed into a law. And what does this mean, for a recap for those who just first heard this? So this will allow small players to compete in our local telco sector. So if you can see over here, I plotted these 5 companies, right? So you have Globe, you have PLDT or Tel, you have Converge, you have Now, and TBGI, right? So Globe is the blue one, PLDT is the red, and Converge is the purple one. So similar to their colors, company colors, and you have Now and TBGI. Okay, so these two, right, are mga quote-unquote small players sa ating telco sector. But if you can see yung kay Globe, PLDT, and Converge, these are the things that majority of Filipinos use day to day. And after that bill or that law was signed or lapsed, rather, these 3 companies has been going down double digits already. And you would see the market speculating on Now and TBGI to benefit from this law. And if you check Converge yesterday, it had a big drop year to date. Okay, so if you're still looking at these companies, I think Globe today is paying at 6-7% dividends, and PLDT is paying at 7-8% dividends. If you're really watching these companies, I think it's better to wait for at least Q3 earnings to really see what's the effect of the law when it comes to their earnings. If you're going to participate in Now and TBGI, we don't know what's the effect yet today, but if you're going to participate today, most probably you're just doing informed speculation. That is it for our market movers today. In our next market movers, we will talk about more things that's happening in our economy. So just in case, guys, you have any stock requests or stocks that you want us to take a look at, maybe you can comment down below, and then let's see if we're going to include them So we'll see you again next week and have a great week, guys. Bye bye and God bless.